Ed, you hear me?
I do. I hear you. You're live
Okay.
on Facebook.
Okay. Ed, carry it. Go ahead. Take it, Ed.
All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Listen, we've had all kind of technical difficulties. We apologize for that, but of course, y'all know we're now 5 minutes out from ending this particular segment. So we want to give Donna or at least give these ladies an opportunity to just say real quick, who they are and in the books that they represent, and then we're going to do our best to get them back on so we can give them some proper time to the show. So let me start with Annette Austin, of course. Annette, why don't you just go ahead real quick and say who you are and what book, and then we'll kind of move it around to Renee, and then of course to MJ.
Annette Alston. I am the author of Harriet Tubman for Beginners, which came out in 2017. And it's geared toward high school, college age students. It's an opportunity to really find out who Harriet Tubman was, not just before the Civil War, but during the Civil War, after the Civil War, the contributions that she made to this country and to our people. And so that's who I am.
And just tell everybody where they can get the book.
I'm sorry, I missed
Tell
that.
everyone where they can get the book at.
And you can get the book on Amazon.com. Just put in Harriet Tubman for Beginners and it will pop right up.
All right, great. Renee, you want to go?
Good evening. I'm Renee Graves Barham. My book is Brighter Days, and my book is geared to adolescents to preteen. It is to try to guide the youths away from the gangs. You can purchase my book at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. I pray everybody buys the book and reads it to the young ones because even though gang violence has calmed down in certain areas, it's still out there. And just pray we keep our youth safe.
And where can folks get the book?
Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
And I'm glad you mentioned Barnes and Noble. Often we forget about Barnes and Noble, but yes, that is, we should not forget,
No, Barnes and Noble is very good. They've been very good to me. And you definitely can purchase it. It's called Brighter Days. I never mentioned this in anything. It's called Brighter Days.
All right. And MJ?
MJ Walker. The title of the book is It Is What It Is. It's for anyone trying to overcome any kind of obstacle and looking for that glimmer of hope. The book can be purchased on Amazon.com, paperback or Kindle version.
Now, Ed, have we asked the most important question?
No, we have not. So you can go ahead.
So I know what that question is. Do you want me to start with that?
Donna, you muted.
I'm sorry. So no, Annette, you're going last.
Okay.
So for all of this is a hip hop political show. So we always ask one question. What hip hop artist, individual or group are you listening to? Is your favorite artist or group, or who are you listening to now? And Renee, we'll start with you.
Oh, wow. Hip hop, I would always have to say definitely Queen Latifah, Naughty by Nature. You always got to start off back home. And then I like to go overseas to my Caribbean.
Okay. And MJ?
I'm stuck in the 80s and 90s. So MC Light, Queen Latifah, like I miss music. Like I miss hip hop. Listening to now, I always will turn on Jay-Z. As crazy as he is, I can turn on Kanye. I enjoy Kendrick Lamar. people who still make me feel like hip hop isn't dead. People not just up there making noises, but actually saying something.
No techno hip hop. And
Yeah.
Annette, who are you listening to on July 30th, 2021?
So I like listening to gospel for the most part, and I do. My father was a jazz person, so in honor of my father, I found myself listening more to jazz. But I do like Chance. I listen to him, and I love his message, his positive messages and uplifting. And so, yeah, I appreciate him. And Kanye is interesting. I just can't get past his politics, but he's brilliant. But I just we'll leave that alone.
he leaves you speechless. Okay. So Renee, MJ, Annette, we're going to have you back so we can show you our show without all the technical difficulties. I thank you for your patience again. And as educators, I know that patience is something that, especially with the combined years of experience that we have here. And Mike, our tech person, thank you, Mike, for just bringing it all together. You're going to have an All Politics Are Local training class so that we all can know how to run the back part. Everybody always see these programs going on seamless, but they never are seamless. There's always somebody in the background making it happen. So, and Mike is that person for us. So MJ, Annette, and Renee, thank you so much. And I hope your doors are open when we come back, because I think reading is something, I'm class out of high school class in 1985. So my K through 8, we came up with a program called Scholastic, where we would order books in our classrooms like once a month. And, so reading was just a part of my life. So keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for just taking the time to spend with us. Okay. Any last words? Okay. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. Good night. You know what? I want to say this too, because I'm a little embarrassed, because I told you I'm into jazz and gospel. I was thinking of Common too. I like Common.
I do like Common.
Yeah, Common. Yes, yeah. And I'll make sure you guys, when we did the text earlier, you guys are all connected through that text. So I hope you guys stay connected with one another, because without even interviewing, y'all have a lot in common. And I think that, what you have to offer our community is very special. And so y'all can do it individually. And as educators, y'all know how to connect. So please use those resources.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ed, you ready to transition us into our next segment?
Yeah, well, of course, we need to make sure that everybody, of course, over there have the new link. So I'm not sure if they do.
Okay.
And, was Zaid supposed to be part of this?
That I will text Jonathan. But do we know Mike is well, I guess I would know. Hey, Dr. Harris. I'll make Dr. Harris do it. Yay! Hey, Dr. Harris, make me. So, Dr. Harris, you got it from here? You're on the phone.
Oh, I do. I'm trying to get Obi. What's up, Brother Riley?
Hey, what's good, Brother Harris?
I'm good. How you? How you doing?
Man, I'm trying to keep it black, brother.
I heard that.
Hey, what's going on? You trying to get Obi on?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're here. Let's talk.
So what you want to do though, down there, is touch bases. I don't know if Zaid
Okay.
I know Jonathan was trying to say whether he
I just sent you a text with the link. Okay.
Dr. Harris, mute yourself, sir. Okay. All right, I'll do that. I'll try to get Zaid in. We got Jonathan and Ed here, but while you guys talk amongst each other, I will get Zaid on the call.
So, Brother Harris.
Yes, sir.
So listen, man. I didn't know you was gonna be all things Cuba, man, because I could only be in one direction with Cuba. You know what I mean? So I guess you're gonna have to, tell me what direction y'all want to go in, because I understand that there's some folks who want to overthrow Cuba now, brother. You know?
Yeah, well, I'm not an expert on Cuba. I know a little bit about it. The brother we have coming on, he's an expert on it.
Okay.
He's been doing a lot of work with it for a while, writing for a while, working with the Cuban intersection. So yeah, he's knee deep in it, neck deep in it.
Okay. Because you know, I mean, from my standpoint, man, it's been a safe haven for Asada.
Yeah, indeed.
And it would seem to me that if the focus is that, you know, they're talking about overthrowing Cuba, it would seem that their real focus is to try and go get our sister, right? You know,
I think that's always the underlying thing.
right. So as opposed to, you know, when they say, oh, you know, we're concerned about democracy, right? And we're concerned about you know, people having, you know, enough food to eat or having proper housing and so forth. And I don't know if that's the case, right? I've never been to Cuba, so I don't know what you know what all those issues are. I do know that, you know, of course, what I hear from the Nation of Islam is that they're producing some of the best doctors anywhere in the world, and that their educational system is bar none one of the best. So, I mean, I'm hearing that from folks, but I also know that when folks say that, they have their own agenda.
Right.
In terms of that, and I remember when Jay-Z went to Cuba, he came back, he had nothing but praise for what was going on in Cuba. And then, of course, you know, there was a lot of hate that came toward him when he was saying that, because he said that him and Beyonce had a great time in Cuba.
Yeah, and I think it's very complicated because I know people who've gone there and who have said similar things. I have a good friend. He goes there every year, a couple times a year. The complication is that people do acknowledge that when you travel there, you don't move around like somebody regularly does in Cuba. So you don't have access to people in the same, you know, people don't talk to you in the same way that they would if you were someone who lived there 24/7.
Okay.
So that's the complication part. It's a little bit nuanced. But in terms of it being progressive and things, you know, I think that's clear. It has been. But there's no perfect place on earth, you know, and we have to deal with the contradictions of every place, even places we love. And so, no, I've never been, man. I've never been.
Yeah.
I've never been. And it's shit because, like, yeah, my partner, man, he was on this show with us before, Kwesi Densu in Florida A&M. He goes there twice a year and takes students there. He's been doing that for the past over the past decade. And then I know other people who've been there clearly for a while. You know, good brother Dr. Sales. I know he's been there and took people there. So yeah.
But I think that's what should happen, right? I think that what we need is the same way they take those tours to Africa. I think what we need to do is to begin to take people there on tours and let people see that for themselves. I know the Nation of Islam did that, right? Where one Savior's Day, they took a number of folks down there and had them visit, you know, some of the institutions that were there. This was when Fidel Castro was still alive. Right, they had folks go there to visit the medical system and so forth. And remember, they had actually developed like 5 different vaccines. Right, I remember when early in the in this whole COVID-19 thing. I remember when the mayor came on, the mayor had told us that they actually had 4 or 5 vaccines before America actually had them. But they're not making those vaccines available. You know, of course, outside of Cuba. Because of course, you know, their communist status. So they
that blockade, man, is killing them. The blockade is killing them.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but remember, under President Obama, remember he lifted that, right? So that trade was able to start going on. And then of course, when you know, when Trump got elected, of course, you know, they did everything they could to push that back. And then of course, when Fidel Castro died, you know, they were moving, you know, toward being able to dial all of that back. I think it's more political than it is.
No question. The Cuban lobby is strong.
Yeah.
The Cuban lobby is strong, and I think a lot of us don't know the history, and that's one of the things that we want to briefly touch on tonight with our guest when he gets here. Touch on a little bit of that history for people who may not be aware of it. You know, from what I understand, years ago, Asada used to greet people sometimes when they came there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would go just for that, bro.
Right. Yeah. I think she stopped it I think she had to stop. You know, she had to go. You know, because people out there trying to get her.
Yeah, exactly.
Even agent provocateurs here were trying to find out. Black agent provocateurs here were trying to find out where she was.
Yeah. Because then at one point they had like $1 million bounty up or something.
They still do.
They still do. Yeah. Yeah.
They still do. Our great state here of New Jersey.
Because they were trying to force Fidel Castro to give her up. Right? They were saying that if he gave her up, then of course they would lift some of the different embargoes that were on them. They were willing to lift up some of those things, and he wouldn't give her up.
No, he wouldn't do it. No, he wouldn't do it. Yeah. And I think that, and like you said, I think they'll still try to put pressure on whoever, and that's a thing I think people have to always be mindful of. And I think people really have to go back and look at the case of Assata Shakur.
Right.
I think people have a knee-jerk response to her, and without really doing the research and understanding what happened in her trial, and see that she wasn't even able to shoot anybody.
Right.
Because her arm basically was paralyzed. But anyway, that's something that we really have to get into as well.
Right. Right. But that's the thing. I think that, if we talk about where we are now, particularly in this country, we now understand America a lot better now than we did then. And I think that if we were able to really go and take a look at the evidence, right, and really take a look at where things are, I think that we'd see things differently, And you can mute yourself, my brother. So Donna, were you able to check on Brother Zaid for us?
Yes, Brother Zaid will not be with us tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So Donna, let me ask you a question. Those three sisters, were those three sisters all teachers?
Yes, isn't that? Well, I knew that. Of course, we know Annette is retired, and I know that MJ is a current teacher. What I didn't know, because Randy that owns sandwiches, that's his daughter Renee, okay. And I know at one point we were going to bring Randy on as an entrepreneur. Renee was like, wait, I'm an author. So I was like, yeah, let's talk about that. And but I did not know Renee was an educator until she said it tonight. Yeah.
Is Sandwich Unlimited still open?
Oh, yeah. Sandwiches has 2 stores. They have this store, of course, in Orange, which is the main store. And then they have the second store in East Orange, which is kind of before McDonald's. Yeah.
It used to be on Main Street, though.
Yeah, it used to be on Main Street in East Orange, but now they're on Central Avenue in East Orange. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. And Randy and bigger, and if as many people do know and many people don't know, but Randy, his catering business is probably larger than the store business. It's probably he does a lot of catering. Yeah. Okay. So, are you back, Mr. Harris? What's the update, sir?
I'm back. He's trying to get on. He couldn't. The link wasn't working for him. So
you gave him the second link.
I did, and I just shared his info with Jonathan. So Jonathan's going to try to reach out to him and walk him through since he's having problems. Jonathan's going to troubleshoot for us.
Okay, so I always said Dr. Harris can do it, but tonight you said Jonathan can do it. Okay. Dr. Harris, update us. What's going on over at Seton Hall?
Tomorrow we have a memorial service for Judy Miller, who was one of the Black Studies Center was founded in 1970 by psychologist named George Jackson. He was the founding, and he left after 3 years. And Julia Miller, everybody called her Judy, she took over, and she did a great job in building the program. She got Gil Noble to teach classes for us. She got honorary degrees given to Alex Haley and Betty Shabazz and
Out of Seton Hall. Wow.
yeah, and Mr. Michelle's bookstore
Mhm.
in Harlem. She got him an honorary degree. She just did great things with the program, and she passed earlier this year.
Okay.
90-something years old, but she did a great job, and so we're working with her family we're gonna have a memorial service for her tomorrow.
Okay.
That's an important thing because when we see Seton Hall,
Ooh.
okay.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. I said, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. Harris. I was like, ooh, go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
All right, you good?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. So hold on. This is Obi calling me again.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. You see, this back learning how to do this back, is not. Yeah, we need Mike.
You need to focus on the speaker, Donna.
No, I am, but it's not just focusing on the speaker. It's focusing on how to get the speaker to maneuver the screen. That's what I'm trying to learn how to do.
He's backstage.
He's in backstage at the Raw because I can see all of us that are backstage.
He must be on the old link.
You must be on the old link.
Oh, there you go. No, that's our DJ. Hey, Mr. DJ.
Obi. Let me try again. I'm gonna put you in contact.
Mute. Okay, I see. Now I can see how to mute. Okay. Oh, I see how to do that. Okay. Okay.
So, Donna, John didn't give you a tutorial on this beforehand?
I had like a 10-minute tutorial, sorry. I said I had more like an OJT. Yeah. Yeah, this is but I loved it. I'm glad that I'm learning how to do it. Hey, Mr. DJ. Hey, Mr. DJ.
Peace. What's up, bro?
What's going on, sir?
So Brother
Yes.
Riley and Donna, you never been to Cuba either, right?
No, I'm desiring to go, because I can go because I'm in the travel industry business, so I can go as an agent, or I can go, on a focus group. So we got to get a group. Kelly, listen, Dr. Harris, where you want to go? You want to get a group? A students?
Yes, but I'm saying, why don't we do that?
Let's
Why don't we put together a group? And I'm saying you can do it.
Mhm.
Dr. Harris is, as you know, like those other brothers, all those professors put together these study groups to go out.
Yeah.
And, I'm saying you should organize that, man, and let's make it happen. You know what I mean?
We can, but y'all gonna have to defend me politically because
And make sure that you can get out of the country once you get in.
Yeah, get back in. Right?
That's right.
Cuba is a hot button issue, even at Seton Hall. It's a hot button issue.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's because we haven't developed in this country where we can talk about these kind of issues in an objective fashion.
Right.
That makes sense. People still are adamant, have adamant, strong feelings about certain places, and Cuba's one of them.
Right.
We can't even have discussions about. As you know, people look at a side of the same. People here in New Jersey look at a side of the same way people look at Mumia,
Right.
and think he should be, rotting in jail. That's the same thing about her. People think she should be rotting in jail somewhere. So, and you can't even have a discussion around it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, what they're really saying is they're saying,
John, I'm sorry, Ed. I'm sorry. Dr. Harris, if you put Obi's email in the chat, I'll take care of inviting him. Okay.
Yeah, I gave him the Jonathan. So
no, but give it to me. I can do it right from the show.
I'm
That's
gonna
what I'm
text
saying.
it to you. I'm gonna text you his
No,
number.
could you put it in the chat? Can you put it here
It's
in the
not
chat?
an email. It's his phone number.
Okay, put it in the chat. Yeah.
Put it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
well, I don't know if you want everybody to have his phone number.
It's just us. It's just us.
No. It's
Yeah, put it in the private chat.
No, in a private chat. It's just
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In a private chat. Here. It sounds like you got AOL dial-up.
Hey, Donna, you don't know how to focus in on the speakers when they're talking?
That's what I'm going from different computers, but now I have it. Yes, like I can, like if you are talking, I can say it goes to solo layout. Yes, I do. See?
Well, you or me, and I wasn't.
I'm just saying, but now I'm just showing you I can, sir. And then we can go back. Let me see. Invite.
You know, Dr. Harris, who we can get to organize this is Dr. Sells, since he's retired. You know, let's talk to Dr. Sells and get him to put something together. You know what I mean?
I think he would. I think he would. I'm gonna mention it to him tomorrow. He's supposed to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Also, the memorial service for Julia Miller, what I was talking about, that's going to be tomorrow at 1:00.
Okay.
At Seton Hall. So, you know, hope people out there and listening to us right now who might be alumni, who might have remembered Julia Miller, you know, come through.
Yeah.
It's important for us to honor our elders, man, and our ancestors.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, man. You know, we've been having these conversations around, you know, making sure that you know, that whole conversation about our elders are being had, and unfortunately, it's not. You know, I mean, you got young people acting like they invented everything, and clearly they have not. You know.
Indeed. True indeed.
Yeah, Jonathan said he's trying to help him get on. So, I mean, you know, if he got the link, he should be able to just click the link, and Donna should be able to see him.
Yeah, but everybody's, you know, system is not that, you know, everybody's. It could be a challenge.
Well,
okay. Are you watching, Dr. Harris? Are you watching the Olympics?
Yes. You know, I'm waiting for something. You know, I'm waiting for the track and field, probably like everybody else.
Or the soccer. The soccer has been, you know.
Yeah, you know what? I tried to do the soccer. I can't. I just never could get into it like that.
Okay.
Just never could get into it like that. I could do swimming. I enjoy the swimming.
Oh, the swimming, yes.
Yeah, I enjoy the swimming, but I really haven't had time lately. I haven't been managing my time well.
Okay.
Haven't had time to do it. But anyway, you know, it's interesting because, you know, the stuff that's happening in Cuba now, there is a divide developing amongst the black left. And I should say for people they call progressives and stuff like that, because on one hand, people are saying we need to defend the revolution, which is true, right? But on the other hand, people are saying, well, what about the problems that still exist in Cuba for black people? And that's what I want to dig into tonight once Obi gets on here. So you had some black activists are saying, well, you know, we can defend the revolution and still hold Cuba accountable for the progress it hasn't made with race relations. So that's something here, Brother Obi is right here. So that's what we're going to dig into with him right now. So Brother Obi Egbuna, who's a Pan-Africanist, scholar, journalist, founder of Mass Emphasis Children's Theater. He's a playwright. I can keep going on and on. He's been a journalist for in Zimbabwe, in Cuba. So I've known him for 20 plus years. So I'm glad that he's on with us. So we'll jump right into it, Brother Obi. How you doing?
Good evening. How are y'all doing?
Good, my brother.
Peace.
Obi, so why don't you so we want to try to go through a couple quick layers real quick, but initially tell us right now where Cuba is right now and what's happening in Cuba right now. Just give us an update.
Cuba produced 4 vaccinations aimed at eradicating the deadly genocidal corona pandemic. They have the distinction of being the only country in Latin America with a vaccine manufacturer. They produce 4 vaccinations called Sovereign 1, Sovereign 2, one called Mambisa, named after a freedom fighter, and another one called Abdallah, that just went through clinical testing, and it has a 92% effectiveness rate. Cuba has 57 medical brigades, the Henry Reeve Medical Brigade, fighting the deadly corona pandemic in 40 nations. Cuba just had at the United Nations on June 23rd, 184 countries vote against the monstrous, racist, terrorist, genocidal blockade imposed on them by the Kennedy administration, and only 2 nations in favor of the blockade, the United States, of course, and the Zionist state of Israel. So that's what we have to say about Cuba.
What's unpacked for us right now in terms of the protests that are happening in Cuba or have happened in the past few weeks?
There was a protest that happened on June 11th, and that protest is a carryover from 1959, technically. You had the Peter Pan generation of Cubans who missed the days when Lucky Luciano was running heroin from Sicily through Cuba to New York City. And Meyer Lansky had his gambling empire in Cuba, which was all eradicated during the revolutionary process. 1961, the CIA has the Bay of Pigs invasion. 1962, the blockade is imposed. 1983, Ronald Reagan brings into existence an organization called the Cuban American National Foundation. That organization's slogan was "From proletarians to profitarians." What happens after that is they work for years to bring about regime change in Cuba. Through that vehicle, 2 terrorist organizations were created called Alpha 66 and Brothers to the Rescue. They were 635 assassination attempts on the life of Comandante Fidel Castro. 635 times he was supposed to end up like Brother Malcolm in the Audubon Ballroom. 635 times he was supposed to end up like Medgar Evers on his porch. 635 times he was supposed to end up like Dr. King at the balcony on the Lorraine Motel. 635 times he was supposed to end up like Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. So what happened is this organization, after doing all of that, they had no other resort. Cuba has been falsely accused of human trafficking. One of the generals that organized the heroic stand with us in Angola ended up being linked up with Pablo Escobar. They said they would let him go if he said Comandante Fidel Castro persuaded him to get involved in cocaine smuggling. They have done everything they can to bring about regime change in Cuba. So 18 years ago, Jimmy Carter went there and said that the opposition should have a voice in Cuba on the ground. And they incarcerated.
Obi, hold on for a second.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack a little bit, so we can dig into the context a little bit for where you have so many different competing
narratives,
right? In terms of how we understand Cuba. So let's back up. So I want you to deal with a couple points here. One, I want you to talk about briefly Antonio Maceo and what he represented, and Jose Marti.
Okay.
And the historic struggle for Cubans. I want you to touch on the Platt Amendment and the role of the United States coming in. And I want you to go back, and you mentioned Lucky Luciano, but paint a picture for us before the revolution. What was Cuba like in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s? What was Cuba like in its relationship to the United States? And particularly, what was Cuba like for Afro-Cubans?
I would do one better than that for you. Let's go back. The first 7 presidents of the United States, one of their priorities in foreign policy was to annex Cuba. The first 7 presidents of the United States. So Cuba was supposed to end up like Texas and California, extracted from Mexico. It was supposed to end up like Puerto Rico. It was supposed to end up like the U.S. Virgin Islands. It was supposed to end up like Guam. Cuba before we always say that what are commonly referred to as slave ships, because we don't say slavery anymore. We don't say slave ships, we say captivity. So we say that those captivity ships were the first form of public transportation, which is public transportation picks you up and drops you off. So before, just like we were dropped off in Virginia and dropped off in Jamaica and dropped off in Panama, dropped off in Haiti and dropped off in Trinidad, we were dropped off in Cuba. We had 300 rebellions and uprisings in Cuba. The most well-known one was by Jose Aponte, and he was beheaded and his head was put in a cage to intimidate our people. In 1908, 1 year before the NAACP was created, 1 year before Catherine Dunham and Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah were born, the first all-African political party in the Western Hemisphere, Partido Independiente de Color, which means the Independent Party of Color, was created in Cuba. The Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey had 40 branches of the UNIA in Cuba. So when you look at the Platt Amendment, it was an amendment aimed at representing annexation of the Americas. And the Spanish-American War was Spain and the United States fighting over who would colonize Cuba, which lasted from 1868 to 1890. And the revolutionary resistance was led by a great man named Jose Marti, who they called the apostle of their revolution. And one of his best soldiers who emerged as a general from the plantations is the one and only Antonio Maceo, who we call the Bronze Titan, who the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey named the first Black Star Line in honor of. And outside of Toussaint Louverture, outside of Dessalines, outside of Kofi in Guyana, General Antonio Maceo is the most respected African pre-20th century in the history of our struggle in the hemisphere for self-determination.
Now, so a little bit about what was the relationship of the Cuban government before the revolution, during the 20th century, with the United States, and in terms of the gambling empire as well.
Oh, okay. Well, like we said earlier, La Cosa Nostra set up a gambling empire in Cuba. Meyer Lansky had casinos, several casinos in Cuba. Lucky Luciano, after he was deported, he went to Sicily and he had a doll factory. And the doll factory was for the purpose of a heroin distribution pipeline. So heroin came from Sicily to Havana and ended up on the ports of New York City. So this is what was going on. And before the revolution, Cuba was a devil's playground, because we know about how decadent culture, Western imperialist decadent culture, finds its way through tourism. So prostitution was rampant, drug usage was rampant, drug distribution was rampant, blue collar crime, poor people's crime, desperate people's crime was rampant before the revolution. And when the revolution eventually prevailed, they reversed the fortune of the Africans and the whole nation, but especially the Africans.
So when Castro takes power, well, I shouldn't say Castro. I should just say the revolution happened.
The July 26th movement.
July 26th movement,
yes.
Which a lot of Afro-Cubans were involved with.
Yes.
Right? So when that happens, at what point does Castro and Cuba, the new Cuban government, at what point do they become public enemy number one for the United States? And why do they become public enemy number one?
Well, to quote John F. Kennedy, he said, what makes Cuba dangerous is not just their ability to maintain their revolutionary direction, but the inspiration that they would give others to follow their courageous path. And Kennedy wasn't bluffing. When Salvador Allende and the people of Chile chose the path of the Cuban Revolution, Allende was disposed of in 1973. 10 years later, the Maurice Bishop of Grenada and the New Jewel movement, who had the most significant revolution of Africans in the Caribbean since the Haitian Revolution in 1804 and the Cuban Revolution in 1959, he was disposed of. The Reagan administration went into Grenada and assassinated him in cold blood at the age of 39, just like Malcolm X and Dr. King. The indigenous revolution in Bolivia under the leadership of Evo Morales was disposed of 2 years ago because they chose to choose that path. And in the Americas, after Cuba, the number one regime change target of the Biden administration is the Venezuelan government, who has definitely adopted the revolutionary path of Cuba. So Cuba's an inspiration to all of us in the Americas. And during the Cold War, anyone, and I forgot Nicaragua, and we can't forget Nicaragua, because Nicaragua was the reason that the CIA made Freeway Ricky Ross the number one drug dealer in our communities, so that they could gain resources to maintain a war against Nicaragua, because they overthrew the Somoza regime, which ran Nicaragua into the ground for 70 years.
So what do you say to people because you have this battle right now over Cuba. So and correct me if I'm wrong. And we was talking right when you came on that you have people who saying that we need to rally around Cuba and defend the revolution, show solidarity with Cubans. But you also have others say, well, we can do that, but also be critical of racist practices in Cuba. That Black people, Afro-Cubans, are still not doing well, are still struggling. Even, and this isn't just beyond, and I want you to talk a little bit about Carlos Moore. I want you to talk about Walterio Carbonell and their criticism of Cuba. And how do you grapple with that when you look at Cuba and see yourself as in solidarity with Cuba?
Like we do anywhere else. We first of all, whenever you look at any group of people that are the same people, they are ideological distinctions. So on one side, you have Antonio Maceo, those who have the African fighting spirit. Antonio Maceo, the Africans who created Partido Independiente de Colo. Juan Almeida, who was in the Sierra Maestra Mountains with Comandante Fidel Castro and Che Guevara. Harry Villegas, who was the only one to come out of Bolivia alive when Che Guevara was assassinated by the CIA. You have Nicholas Guillen, who was the poet laureate of the revolution. They called him the Langston Hughes of Cuba. You have Armando Tellez, the first African to go to space in the Americas, who's a Cuban astronaut. So you have them on one side. And then you have Carlos Moore, who the Ford Foundation created, Frankenstein style, and gave him a grant to write the book Castro of the Blacks in Africa. You have Guillermo Regan Diao, the boxer. You have El Duce. You have all of these people who are products of the revolution, but betrayed the revolution, so what have you. So in the same way that that Patrice Lumumba and Mobutu Sese are both Congolese, Mobutu's the CIA stooge, Patrice Lumumba is the revolutionary who he assassinated and poured acid on his body after he did it. You make a distinction between the Africans in Mozambique who fought in the liberation struggle with the liberation movement Frelimo and those who fought with Renamo, the CIA-trained mercenaries. The same thing in Angola. The Africans who chose the path of revolution fought with MPLA, and those who were in favor of maintaining the colony fought with the CIA-trained mercenaries called UNITA. So what I'm saying is you have Africans in Cuba who are on the side of the revolution, and you have Africans who have become regime change agents. All you have to do is listen to what they have to say, listen to where they stand. If they're regime change agents, they're working with the United States Agency for International Development. They're working with the State Department. They're working with the National Democratic Institute. They're working with the National Endowment for Democracy. Because if they are with the revolution, they understand that, yes, there are contradictions. The revolution has never declared perfection, and they embrace their contradictions courageously, and they try to turn their weaknesses into strengths and expand on the strengths that they have.
Hold on. So how do Africans in the diaspora who want to show solidarity with Cuba and the Cuban Revolution, and particularly what's going on right now in terms of trying to end the blockade, how do Africans in the diaspora show solidarity, but at the same time acknowledge those contradictions and try to address those contradictions?
Watch how the revolution addresses those contradictions, because if you work with them, they'll tell you step by step what they're doing to address those contradictions. And this is what we're saying. We organized 2 concerts for them, one in July of last year and one in February of this year. We had artists from 10 African nations, 8 Caribbean nations, 17 US cities, and 5 European Union nations participate. When you see the Cuban artists that participated and you look at the music they were playing and you see how talented they were playing classical music, they were playing jazz, they were doing hip hop, they were doing salsa, they were doing merengue. They are a product of the Cuban Revolution. When you look at the hundreds of thousands of African youth who have been trained at the Latin American School of Medical Sciences in Cuba, but not only in Cuba, They invite the Africans who grew up in Haiti, the Africans who grew up in Grenada, the Africans who grew up in Burkina Faso, Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, to come to Cuba and train and go back to their nations and be the best doctors their nations have ever produced. When you see the fact that they have 4,000 doctors on the African continent dispersed throughout Africa, what they did for the Ebola pandemic in Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia, when you see that Asada Shakur has been safe and sound since she escaped Underground Railroad style and has been in Cuba. Nehande Obi Egbuna was safe over there, how they protected Robert Williams. When you see how they defended us in Angola, I'm the external relations officer, Brother Kelly, as you know, of the Zimbabwe-Cuba Friendship Association. The reason that Zimbabwe has a 97% literacy rate is because between 1986 and 1996, 3,000 Zimbabweans went to Cuba for training. So at a moment in history where 1.2 million children drop out of school in the United States every year, that's 7,000 students a day, of course we're going to rally around the Cuban Revolution. What we have learned through the years is when the United States attempts to demonize a nation, isolate a nation, we look at that nation's positive attributes. And when you look at their role in the fight to eradicate AIDS, their role in the fight to eradicate the corona pandemic, the role that they play in gerontology, they have the best gerontology program in the Americas. For your listeners who don't know what that is, that's taking care of the elderly. And that's something we definitely are serious about, especially when this country will turn an old folks home into a Java Juice or a Planet Fitness at the blink of an eye because of real life Lego, which you call gentrification. When you take a look at the fact that in Venezuela, they're working with the Venezuelans on a project called Operation Project Miracle, aimed at eradicating blindness in the Americas. When you look at the fact that they offered 500 medical scholarships a year to students in the United States to go to the Latin American School of Medical Sciences, so you could come back to Newark, come back to Teaneck, come back to Union, come back to Piscataway, come back to Camden and be the best medical representation that our people have ever had, which goes back to our struggle when we started the National Medical Association in 1896, when Du Bois wrote the study called The Physique and Health of the Negro American. So they are, when you look at what their revolution is aimed to accomplish, not only how they empowered our people in Cuba that are Cuban-born Africans, but what they have done for Africa's landscape, what they have done for the landscape in the Caribbean. We have no choice but to stand with them, and the Africans there who cannot handle the pressure that comes with the blockade. And we know it's a lot of pressure because that blockade has cost the people over $150 billion since 1962. This is why we have a call right now for the restitution, repair, and redemption of the Cuban people. This is why Comandante Fidel Castro and his brother Raul Castro have told the United States they are seeking reparations for the damages of the blockade. And we support that. And we are asking all organizations throughout New Jersey, throughout the United States, to sign on to that. We're putting that out next week, and we're presenting that to the Biden administration. And for the last year, we have been fighting for the Henry Reeve Medical Brigade to come to the United States and deal with the corona pandemic, because they are the driving force in the fight against the corona pandemic. And many of those doctors are African doctors. The fact that their goal by August.
When you say you've been fighting for that, what has been the response of people in Congress? Or is there anyone in Congress that has been supportive of what you're trying to do?
Their best impersonation of Beethoven. Deaf ears, but we're still going to fight. We want to use this opportunity to
Obi, I'm sorry, Dr. Harris. Their best impersonation is who? I didn't hear the name, sir.
We said their best impersonation of Beethoven. Deaf ears. They are some of them, they are not willing, but one person who has been different is Newark's own mayor, our brother Ras Baraka. In April, we facilitated a meeting between him and the Cuban ambassador to the United Nations, Pedro Luis Pedrosa Cuesta. And in the next coming up soon, there's going to be a conversation between Mayor Baraka's Corona response team and the Cuban Ministry of Public Health. And after that, we've urged him to write a letter to the African American Mayoral Association, the National Conference of Black Mayors, and the World Conference of Mayors, so the mayors can be involved in that situation. Speaking of racism, Brother Kelly, it's ironic that those who talk about racism in Cuba have ignored the fact that Cuba has 3 African vice presidents right now, 3 of them. And they are part of a revolutionary process. They are not glorified runner-ups like some other people we know in that capacity, who are in that capacity to represent the sham of Black excellence, where they represent African resistance. So the fact that Cuba has 3 African vice presidents right now, if that doesn't represent the decolonization process in perpetual motion, I don't know what does.
Well, Obi, let me play devil's advocate for a minute, because there's a couple things I want you to address.
You can do that if you want to, but you know I'm a horn snatcher, though. But you can go ahead.
Check this out.
And Brother Harris, I got a question for him before you do that.
Go ahead.
Obi, I'm just curious as to, you were saying that that Brother Mayor Baraka is going to be talking with the Minister of Health.
He met with the ambassador. His corona response team will have a meeting with the Cuba's Ministry of Public Health, as the first step towards full all-out engagement in the face of Senator Menendez. We're not fazed by him at all.
So the question I got for you is that, can you tell me where the country is in regards to the new variants that is going around in the United States? Where are they at with that?
Well, in terms of the regime change agents are going to do what they want to do, but they're focusing on the objectives of the revolution. Their goal is, I'll repeat, I said it earlier, by August to vaccinate 60% of society, by December to vaccinate 100% of society. They have produced 4 vaccinations in the last year. They have the distinction of being the only nation in Latin America to have a vaccine manufacturer, the Finlay Institute. And before that, they were using something called interferon alpha 2B, which was developed in 1986 in their Center for Genetic and Biotechnical Engineering. So they are well ahead of the curve. They have 57 brigades in 40 nations. And the reason that they're talking about racism the way they are is so when we talk to young people in Newark and say, go to medical school in Cuba, they want to plant the seeds of doubt. Thanks to the senator in New Jersey, Menendez, a Democrat, but a racist, a white supremacist, he has led an initiative to intercept 7,117 doctors from Cuba in the last 14 years. These are doctors when they are part of the Henry Reed Medical Brigade, and they could be in Angola, they could be in Haiti, they could be in Nicaragua. They try to persuade them to abandon their revolution and come to the United States and live high on the hog, which motivates a lot of people to get into medicine in this country. So that's what's going on. They're focusing on their revolution. They're focusing on staying sovereign.
So do they have the virus under control in Cuba at this point?
The challenges they have is because of the blockade, they are not able to get certain supplies. So even though they've produced these 4 vaccinations, Brother Riley, they need syringes. And you have a network in this country that's trying to send syringes down there. So any challenges they have is because of the blockade. Because how could a country that has the ability to produce 4 vaccinations be having any challenges? It's only because they don't have the resources to purchase things on the international market. They are obstacles in the arena of trade. And we will send you their remarks.
I got it, my brother. So, but the question I'm asking is, so are you saying they don't have it under control because they don't have the syringes? However, they do have the vaccines in order to get it under control. So, are you saying they don't have it under control?
I'm saying that any challenges they face is not because they don't have it under control. It's the challenges they face because of materials they don't have access to because of the blockade. But in terms of having it under control, in terms of having the program in place, having the infrastructure in place, having the human resources in place, I'm saying that they are the apple of everyone's eye. That is the reason that many countries have nominated the Henry Reed Medical Brigade for the Nobel Peace Prize, which is more explosive than the dynamite that Alfred Nobel used to build when he was living.
Obi, so where is the Congressional Black Caucus? What have they said about recent developments in Cuba?
Well, you know, their whole thing is they're going to take the position that they've always taken, which is a soft position. Everyone's against the blockade, 184 nations, but they'll say normalize relations. But the way we feel about that is the way we've always felt. When you say you want to normalize relations with the United States of America, the Democrats and Republicans, you're asking the inhumane to be humane. And every time, and when Cuba engages the United States, based on history, we're talking about 635 assassination attempts on the life of Fidel Castro, which we mentioned earlier. We're talking about blowing up a plane with Olympians on it,
Well,
terrorist attacks.
hold on. So I should note that this isn't just you saying that the United States acknowledges the attempts on Castro's life.
They had 5 people, 5 Cuban patriots who infiltrated the terrorist cells in Miami, showed them the evidence, and then they put them in jail for over 20 years for false charges of espionage. The United States knows about this. And this is and so what I'm saying is when Cuba engages the United States, they feel as comfortable as a child in a room full of pedophiles.
Did anything change during the Obama administration in terms of relations with Cuba?
What happened was the Obama administration was forced to go back to what happened during the Clinton administration. During the Clinton administration, Ted Turner and the head of General Electric bought an ad in the New York Times and talked about the economic advantages of normalizing relations with Cuba. And then Cuba was taken off the Pentagon's security list. And then after that, the Bush administration came back in and Condoleezza Rice called them an outpost of tyranny. So it goes back and forth. So we're saying that we must look at the issue of Cuba based on what they have to offer to the world, not through the lens of the never-ending lovers' quarrel between Democrats and Republicans. The blockade must be lifted, and when the blockade is lifted, the challenges that it will be proven that the challenges they have is because of the blockade. Because a country that has the highest literacy rate in the world, one of the top 3 healthcare systems in the world, that is marveling in the area of AIDS, marveling in the area of cancer, marveling in the area of glaucoma, marveling in the area of the corona pandemic, how can they have obstacles all of a sudden? And the worst mistake that the regime change agents made is when they started talking about the corona pandemic. If you have the ability to send 57 brigades to 40 nations, why would you do that if you are negligent in your own nation?
So one of the things that I should have mentioned earlier, in terms of introducing you and your background, your father, you're Obi Egbuna Jr.
Yes, I am.
Your father is Obi Egbuna Sr., who was a playwright, a great writer, an activist, friends with
co-founder of the Black Panther Party in London,
co-founder of
the Black Power movement in London. Yes.
And a book is coming out on that, correct?
A re-release of his 1972 book, Destroyed His Temple, which was the answer to Kwame Ture and Charles Hamilton's book, Black Power, which will show people the full impact of Black Power globally and the full impact of the Black Panther globally. And that's very important because, as a matter of fact, what we're talking about tonight is important because our young people are overwhelmed but sick and tired of the amputated narrative of the collective African experience, where you cut us off in North America from the rest of the Americas, the rest of the diaspora, and definitely Mother Africa. But like the last word in Lift Every Voice and Sing, we'll be true to our God and we'll be true to our native land.
So clearly we know that there was a vibrant Black Power movement in this country. We know that there was a vibrant Black Power movement in London, which your father was a part of, also in the Caribbean. But what about Cuba in terms of any Black political formations? Because we know that there's a tension between
I'm talking fast, but Cuba was ahead of the curve. The first all-African political party, I'm going to say it again, 1908, Partido Independiente de
What about
Color.
now, though? What about now in terms of what's going on now?
Oh, now let's just look at their connections to the African continent. If you want to go there, okay. The first who we call the father of modern day Black Power, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He's the first one to come out and recognize the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. The next day, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt/Kemet, who saved Brother Malcolm's life when the CIA tried to poison him there, he followed. When Ahmed Ben Bella, leader of the Algerian Revolution, came back to the United States on his diplomatic tour when he became the president, Kennedy told him to cancel his tour to Cuba. Not only did he take his tour to Cuba, he prepared his welcoming statement to the Cuban people in Spanish. The very first place that Comandante Fidel Castro went in Africa was Guinea. And the only other person that he has called a revolutionary apostle besides Jose Marti was Ahmed Sékou Touré, leader of the Guinean Revolution. On October 19th, 1986, Samora Marshall's plane came mysteriously crashing down between the hills of Mozambique and South Africa. 2 Cuban doctors were killed in that crash. They were his personal physicians. We know that Cuba fought with us in Angola for 14 years, shoulder to shoulder. We talked earlier about the fact that they trained 3,000 teachers in Zimbabwe, which is the reason we have a 97% literacy rate. So Cuba's commitment to Africa's revolution, Cuba's commitment to Africa's decolonization process, Cuba's undying respect and love for the Yoruba culture practiced by the Santeurians, these are examples, practical examples of their commitment to Africa's redemption. We are 20 years removed from the United Nations Conference on Racism, Xenophobia, and other related intolerances that took place in Durban, South Africa. The Bush administration said if reparations, the captivity of our ancestors, and the Palestinian question were on the agenda, the United States would do everything they can to stop the meeting from happening, and they would boycott the meeting. Comandante Fidel Castro went there, gave the best speech, and he said that Cuba's 100% behind reparations, not only for Africans in North America, but for Africans throughout the Americas, Africans in Colombia, Africans in Brazil, Africans in Jamaica, Africans in Haiti, Africans in Costa Rica, Africans in Nicaragua, so on and so on and so on. That's why we've been engaging Africans in the Caribbean all week long to support this initiative, that we must support Cuba's call for reparations in the form of restitution for the damages courtesy of that the blockade have caused. All of the Africans who died because of the blockade due to starvation, all of the Africans that didn't get medicine, whatever challenges and whatever damage that the blockade has caused, because our people, Brother Kelly, still don't understand diplomatic terrorism. And let's quote President Obama during his first inauguration. He said, the might of our military must be matched by the strength of our military must be matched by the strength of our diplomacy. That means that even though their preference is to bomb a nation, even though their preference is to assassinate a leader who they can't get to bow to their knee, come to their knees, they'd rather assassinate them. That's their preference. That's their cultural MO. But if they cannot do that, they will starve your babies to death. They will starve your elderly to death. They will starve the women and men to death. And that's what the blockade represents. The same thing that Biden, being a co-sponsor of the Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act, has done to our people in Zimbabwe for reclaiming our land from 4,500 white commercial farmers. The same type of sanctioning that has left 2 million people dead in Iraq, that Madeleine Albright spearheaded. This is diplomatic terrorism from who Dr. King called the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. And so when President Obama, coming back to your initial question, was talking about loosening the blockade, ask our babies who are handcuffed by the police how they feel when the handcuffs get loosened. How do you think our ancestors that were lynched felt when the noose was loosened a little bit, but their neck still snapped at the end of the day? So we don't want the blockade loosened or relaxed. We want it done away with.
All right, so Brother Obi, I'm going to turn it over. I want to thank you. You were, as always, a wealth of information. We want to thank you for your work. I'm going to turn it over to Sister Donna and Brother Edward, because they have a tradition here when people come on, All Politics Are Local for the first time. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Obi, I'm sorry. Let me get feedback. Give me a second.
Okay.
Ed, go ahead if you have a question.
You muted, brother Ed.
Yeah.
Now, brother Obi, I think was incredible. I just think that his information is incredible, and we appreciate having you on, my brother.
It was a pleasure to be on, and I want to thank Brother Zaid for arranging that, who performed at both of our concerts that we had, and we want all the schools in New Jersey, elementary, middle, high school, and university, to develop and maintain cultural exchange programs. Make Senator Bob Menendez sweat, cause him sleepless nights, because he is spearheading an effort to kidnap Cuban doctors from their people, just like Elian Gonzalez was illegally kidnapped. But we're glad that Biden is showing his true colors, because many of our people bought into the narrative that the last 4 years of our lives in North America were worse than our first 396. So Biden is showing you he has no interest in trying to be on your Mount Rushmore of your favorite white liberals. He knows he can't surpass Kennedy. He knows he can't surpass LBJ. He knows he can't surpass Clinton. He knows he can't surpass Obama. So he said he'll walk in the shoes of Harry Truman, who created the CIA and gave life to the Zionist state of Israel. And real quickly, Israel has maintained favor in this blockade. So it shows our people that Israel is the enemy of African people. And the reason I say that, Israel was the only nation to stand up and vote against Algeria's self-determination after their independence of the UN. They did the same thing to Tunisia. Israel was the only country to support apartheid in what's called South Africa, what was called Northern Rhodesia, which is today Zambia, which also Southern Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. So when people vilify Adolf Hitler, we understand. But we say that when it comes to your white supremacist terrorists, make room for David Ben-Gurion, make room for Menachem Begin, make room for Yitzhak Rabin, make room for Benjamin Netanyahu, make room for Golda Meir. They belong right next to Hitler. Matter of fact, they could be Hitler's Siamese twins. So Israel is our enemy. Israel hates to see Africans flourish anywhere we do on the continent of Africa and off. And we're using this opportunity to ask the African Union to strip Israel of its observer status of the African Union, and Cuba is more deserving. Replace them with Cuba. And we're asking our sisters and brothers in the Caribbean to finally give Cuba permanent status in CARICOM, which is the diplomatic body. So I wanted to say that too. So it's a pleasure to be on with you, and to keep this local. Let Menendez know in New Jersey that what he's doing does not represent you, and get behind Ras Baraka's push to push all our mayors in this country to have the Henry Reeve Medical Brigade all over this country fighting for the corona pandemic. And let us start sending our young people to medical school in Cuba. The phone number you can call is 212-926-5757 in New York and Harlem. IFCO is the name of the organization, and you can get all the information about the program. It's $250,000, the scholarship. Your children will be bilingual. They go there for 6 years, get them to start taking biology and chemistry. And they can go over there in 6 years, they can be back over here, but they have to sign a contract that they will go to the grimiest of neighborhoods and treat the people there. And since we're predominantly Christian, this is an extension of that good Christian teaching, where if you're Christ-like, you're supposed to be treating the sick anyway. So let's
Thank you, Obi.
Obi,
okay.
can you put that information in our in the private chat so that I can post it up in the banner? And I want to say that your dad, you're Nigerian. I had to my first time, well, only time I've been to Africa was to Nigeria, and so I look forward to going back. And prior to you coming on, we were talking about creating a group educational group to go to Cuba. So we'll be talking offline about that so that we can make sure that All Politics Are Local leads the way. Is this your first time on our show?
This is my first time, and
Okay.
it's an honor to be on. And I just wanted to let you all know one more quick thing. In September, we have this program called the Get Out of Cuba Way movement. So we've been fighting for their brigade to come to the United States, but now we're turning attention to Africa. We are calling for our people in the diaspora to create a resource pool for their work in Africa. I'll repeat this again. They have 4,000 doctors dispersed throughout Mother Africa. So the places we're looking at to start is Zimbabwe, South Africa, Liberia, Nigeria, Ghana, Eritrea, and the Congo, where we can start sending support, material aid, material support to their efforts in Africa, so we can give our people an alternative to the Bush Foundation, because George Bush is a born-again humanitarian all of a sudden. The Obama Foundation, or the Clinton Foundation, or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or Doctors Without Borders, who can't make up their mind whether they want to be intelligence agents or physicians. So this gives us an opportunity to have an alternative. So instead of getting on a soapbox and lecturing about the atrocities of our enemy, because we have to ask ourselves a question: what's worse, the atrocities committed against our people or the predictability of our responses? So what this gives us an opportunity to do is try and explore different things. And what Mayor Raz Baraka has done in Newark is very courageous. We want them to follow up on that meeting, and we want you all to get behind them so you can have these Cuban doctors right there in Newark, and then eventually in TNET, eventually in everywhere else where they're needed all over New Jersey. And after that, our young people will look at them and say, you know what? I want to go to Cuba and be a doctor and come back to my hood and treat my people and give them the best medical representation they've ever had. So we can take something local, make it touch Africa, make it touch the rest of the Americas, because we know blood is thicker than water. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't take up too much time. I hope you're pleased with what I brought to the program.
No, you got some questions, but as you see, the last comment says that this was very educational. So we are grateful for what you have shared with us in this hour, and we look forward to having you back. As you know, this is a hip hop political show. Rhino, are you there? DJ Rhino?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, this is for you, sir. Go ahead. Our DJ has a question for you, sir.
Oh, I got an answer for him.
Peace, brother Obi.
What's up, man?
All right. Just it's a hip hop political show. We also talk hip hop on the show, and we all usually like to ask our guests, especially when it's their first time. Who's your favorite hip hop artist of all time, or who are you listening to right now that's really got you going right now? Who's touching your heart? Who's touching your soul right now in hip hop?
You sure you're ready for my answer?
Yeah, I'll take it.
My answer is a gift to you. I'm gonna put this in the link. BattleCubaZim.wordpress.com. Get BattleCubaZim. Okay, .wordpress.com. From 2013 to 2016, the last time I saw Brother Kelly personally, we've been working with M1 from Dead Prez, and we produced 3 albums of music about and artists all over the world made music calling for the lifting of the blockade on Cuba and sanctions on Zimbabwe. Cross-generational music, multi-genre music. For you young folks out there, the original singer of the R&B group The Moments did something. One of the Last Poets did something. The #1 hip-hop group in Venezuela called Bituaya did something. That's battlecubazim.wordpress.com. You can play it anytime you like. That's our gift to the people. So that's what we did. But to answer your question, the last week I've been listening to Lupe Fiasco, because we want to eventually get him to go. We want to eventually get him to do some work with us, because we're calling on all these hip hop artists to support this push for Cubans, because they're using hip hop now. And when we did that project, we shocked the world. So the United States try to use hip hop because there were some artists that went to Cuba back in 2020. Common went, Dead Prez went, Mos Def and Talib Kweli went, Fat Joe went, but no projects came out of that. So when we connected with M1 in 2004, we talked about this project. We finally got it done. So the United States is using hip hop against the revolution. We wanted to use hip hop and culture to do something. Brother Kelly also mentioned I'm a playwright. We created the first children's play about the Cuban doctors outside of Cuba called Cuba's Greatest Army, a tribute to the Cuban doctors. So, and the children that performed were between 5 years old and 14 years old. And we're supposed to be having the first children's exchange with La Colmanita, Cuba's National Children's Theater Ensemble. So we did something in hip hop. And like I told you last year in July and this year in February, we've done 2 shows. And we had artists from 10 African nations, 7 Caribbean countries, 17 US cities who contributed to that show. And Immortal Technique gave a statement of solidarity, but we had some local artists from all over the place. So yeah, so I hope that answered your question. So that's the hip hop we love, but we had that gift for your audience. And the next time we see you, DJ, tell us how you like that project. 100 songs of music.
Most definitely. I would definitely look out for that. That sounds like something we need and something most necessary because, you know, I think Brother Zayed hit me with an article about, you know, how the US government is trying to use hip hop against the people in a sense, you know what I'm saying?
I got something. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
I got something better for you since this is a hip hop station. The reason why we really need to deal with this is the aspect of cultural warfare.
right.
And we do this all the time when we deal with people in hip hop circles. The movie Scarface, you all, some of you people's favorite movie. That movie was a Cuban propaganda movie. If you go remember the beginning of the movie, it shows Comandante Fidel Castro speaking about the Mario boat lift, where over 100,000 Cubans left to come to Miami.
Right.
And he says, if you are not willing to adapt to the spirit of our revolution, we don't need you. Understand the cultural weapon. The original Scarface movie was made in 1932 by the director Howard Hawks, and it was about Al Capone. How did it shift from Al Capone's life to a fictional character named Tony Montana? And when you listen to Tony Montana in Immigration going through customs, he's talking about eating octopus 3 times a day, people telling him what to do, what to think. That movie was aimed at demonizing Cuba, and it was the second time Hollywood tried it, because if you watch Godfather 2, the character Hyman Roth, that's fictitiously Maya Lansky. And it's the same thing going on. As a matter of fact, you see Batista getting overthrown in that movie. So the movie Scarface, and when you think of all the hip hop artists that were influenced by that movie and how that movie drove us to blue collar crime, desperate people's crime, poor people's crime, our job is to make sure that people look at Cuba through the lens of their revolution and not through the lens of Tony Montana.
And it's so crazy that you said that, because in my adult years watching that movie fairly recently, and seeing that part in the beginning of the movie, that's exactly how I felt. It was like, wow, this is kind of like painting them in like a bad light. This is like, you know, kind of exactly how they do us. You know what I'm saying? Black folks here in America.
And for boxing fans like Brother Kelly, the historic fight in 1982 at the Orange Bowl in Miami between Alexis Arguello and Aaron Pryor, that was organized by the counter-revolutionary Cubans in Miami. Because if you know Alexis Arguello's history, he's from Nicaragua. And the Sandinistas, who he used to support before he became champion, he turned his back on them once he became champion, and he moved to Miami. And because Nicaragua had become a key ally of Cuba, they wanted to use a sporting event to attack the Cuban Revolution, but Aaron Pryor spoiled the party when he beat the crap out of Alexis Arguello, knocked him out in the 14th round. So they have used culture against Cuba. They have used politics against Cuba. They have used environmental warfare against Cuba. They have done everything they can, and Cuba still stands strong. And it is, and as Africans in the United States, based on the challenges we face at this moment, we are 43% of the homeless, even though we're 12% of the population. We are the face of mass incarceration in this country. We are most impacted by gentrification. We are 10.3% of the dropout rate, which is about, if it's 1.2 million, that's about 112,000 children every year that drop out. And you look at what Cuba's positive attributes are, there's no question why not only should we rally around Cuba, but we got to tell all of our people who have a sweet tooth for the Democratic Party, this is the reason that, and you see their hostility against Cuba, their hatred towards Cuba. This is why you know that that is not your party. We understand those of you who strategically penetrate it to magnify certain contradictions, but that's where it should stop. So all we're telling you is there's nothing wrong with the colors of red, white, and blue. You're just waving the wrong flag. It's waving the Cuban flag. That's all.
And Brother Obi, I also wanted to let you know that my grandfather left Jamaica, I want to say 1932. And went to Cuba and stayed there for 3 years and then came to the U.S. So my brother is the historian of the family, but and he was a Garveyite. So when you were talking earlier, I text my brother
40,
what day when did grandpa come from?
40 branches, and then there's another one for you. You know who organized the first delegation to Cuba in the United States out of our community? And he wasn't even a political guy. Joe Louis, 1959, Christmas weekend. He took some journalists down there because Fidel said, you guys can come over here for tourism. You can come and vacation in Cuba. You're welcome. Because we know you can't get on those beaches. They might drown you in the water or lynch you when you get out of the water. So you can come to Cuba. We know, and Brother Malcolm's historic meeting with him in Harlem, that's not where that started. A great African in the 1890s named Arturo Schomburg, who the library in Harlem is named after, when he first came to the United States, he was in an organization called the Committee for the Independence of Puerto Rico. Their two main objectives were building links with the Africans in Puerto Rico and fighting for the independence and sovereignty of Cuba. So before Malcolm's mother and father went on their first date, Arturo Schomburg was already standing with Cuba. Brother Kelly passes out to his students copies of The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon and talks to them about a dying colonialism and toward the African Revolution and Black Skin, White Mass, all of his books. When Che Guevara read The Wretched of the Earth, he broke down in tears and he went and said, this book must be translated in Spanish. This is a Bible. How racist of Cuba to spread The Wretched of the Earth all over Cuba. Sonia Sanchez said when she met Nicholas Guillen for the first time, he couldn't speak English, but he came up crying to her and he kissed her and said, "Como se Langston?" because he knew she was a student of Langston Hughes and him and Langston Hughes were friends. I know if Zaid is on this show, even though it's a hip hop show, I know y'all end up talking about jazz. Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie collaborated with a group of Cuban-born Africans in Cuba called Machito, and they were making music together in the 1940s. So the ties between US-born Africans and Cuban-born Africans is unbreakable. And we know what it is.
I'm sorry, as we get ready to leave, where do you see Fidel's brother is in leadership now? But
No. He just stepped down.
He stepped down.
He passed it over to a young man named Diaz-Canel, who they trained since he was a teenager. Okay. And the vice president after him is an African named Salvador Mesa. Okay. And they got three. The revolution is secure. And that's why Biden is paranoid. And he's doing everything he can to try to create obstacles in Cuba. He's not going to be successful he's exposing his true colors. And so for those in our community who gave him a passing grade after his first 90 days, I say this to Brother Kelly because I think we're the only teachers on here. They must have been grading with a curve where they didn't do all the subjects. Though, and I'm not going to say their names because it's not about antagonizing anyone, but it's about people recognizing the ramifications of their actions. So they were premature in giving him a passing grade. Because if you look at the fact what he's done to Cuba, what he's done to Venezuela, what he's done to Eritrea, and Eritrea is the only nation in Africa, you all, with free education and free health care for his people, and he's trying to get rid of them. Venezuela is dangerous because Venezuela is the hub for something called the Afro-descendant movement. Venezuela is leading a movement where they are saying in Venezuela, we should no longer say we're African Americans. We should no longer say we're Afro-Caribbean. We should no longer say we're Afro-Latino. We should drop all those other things and just say we're African descendants, daughters and sons of Africa. That's what Venezuela is pushing. That's why Biden is spooked. They say there's no democracy in Venezuela. The president of Venezuela, that African named Nicolas Maduro, he used to be a bus driver, you all. Tell me when you go to the streets of New Jersey and you get on one of those buses, tell those bus drivers they can be president. They're going to try to run you over with the bus because they're thinking you're insulting their intelligence. But here you have someone who started off as a bus driver, went through the ranks of their revolution and is president. But Biden is telling you there's no democracy there. As a matter of fact, it's time for the United States to keep their definition, keep their concept of democracy to themselves. We don't want to hear what the International Republican Institute has to say, the National Endowment for Democracy, or the National Democratic Institute. And as a matter of fact, they stay going to Africa lecturing us on democracy, saying we're politically uncivilized. But my sister, you know how many women presidents Africa has had in the last 20 years? About 4 or 5. You know how many women prime ministers Africa's had? A dozen. Samba Panza in the Central African Republic. Ethiopia has a woman president right now. Liberia had a woman president for 12 years. And all you can get in the United States is a glorified runner-up. Who the hell are they to go to Africa and lecture you on democracy? The same way they had no business coming to Africa to lecture us on spirituality. The same way they had no business, they say they're coming to civilize us. We're more advanced than they'll ever be. And even if we don't agree with those women in office, what it shows is the political culture in those nations is conducive to accept women in the leadership roles. So they can't come anywhere telling anyone what to do politically. They are not qualified.
Can you put the name? Oh, you are. Donna, you did it already. Okay.
Right. And actually, the president, when she was president of Liberia, I want to say she came to Essex County College, if I remember correctly. She did. Right.
Sure
right.
Did. Shout out to Dr. Akil Kalfani. We see what you're doing over there. That's our guy. So yeah, so this is what I'm saying. So the thing is, when they bank on and you know what? Because of Black excellence, which is the latest battle cry for integrationists, and they have a right to have battle cries. But our only issue with them is the element of surprise is our best weapon. So if they think we're stupid, if they think we're not paying attention, we don't have to go beyond the call of duty to prove them wrong. Let them think we're sleeping. Let them think we're weak. Let them think we're disorganized. And then when we rise up and come up with innovative projects and put a shock to their system, they'll realize that we mean business. So the issue of Cuba, bothering Cuba is going to lead to the downfall of the United States. Every time they aggressively go after Cuba, they embarrass themselves. When they kidnapped Elian Gonzalez, Comandante Fidel Castro told them, the average U.S. citizen learned more about Cuba in 120 days than they had in 41 years. When you ignored their plea to put differences aside and send 1,500 doctors to the Gulf region during Hurricane Katrina, you look like fools. The average U.S. citizen has learned more about their healthcare system since the corona pandemic than they have learned in 60 years. Keep on being hostile. Keep on being nasty. Keep on being arrogant. It's going to hurt you. Keep it up.
All right, brother Obi-Wan. Thank you, my brother, very much for being on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Yes,
brother.
sir.
All right, man.
Okay. Holler at me, Kelly.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
All right.
All right, y'all.
All right, brother.
All right, Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris,
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
Dr.
call you about the Cuba thing.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Good seeing you, brother Riley and DJ
brother.
Rhino.
Yes,
No
sir.
doubt, man. Good seeing you, family.
All right, man.
All right, y'all take care.
Okay.
Peace.
Peace. All right, Donna. Keesha
All
hit
right.
me up. She said, you know, she'd be on in 2 minutes. So
Yeah, I just put it in. I thought I just had it in. I just thought Keesha was here. I had her.
How do you move this thing from in front of us?
I'm doing it right now. I'm sorry.
By the way,
Wait.
Rhino,
Peace, Ed.
how's everything, brother?
Taking it day by day, brother. You know how to.
Yep. That she had just hit me up.
Oh, there she is.
Told me that that thing going on downtown is off the chain, brother. Too many people.
What's going on downtown?
He said
Oh,
that
yesterday, the Sounds of the City, NJ Pat.
yeah, no, not Sounds of the City. He
What?
said, what was that? That the house music thing that they're doing down there?
Oh, they doing that already?
Yeah, right there
Oh
on
man,
by
I
Prudential.
didn't even know. I didn't get any word on it this year.
Yeah, he
Didn't
said
get any word
too
on
many
that.
people, bro.
Wow.
But
wow.
anyway, we got Sister Keesha on. You want to do the introduction, Donna?
You muted, Donna. Donna, you're muted.
Ed, if you can introduce our beautiful queen, because I'm trying to clean up the back. Hey, queen, how are you?
Hi, Donna. Hi, Ed. How are you?
And she's and she's a co-host. Does she need it?
Well, that's right. That's why I'm saying. You know, Keisha need no introduction. She's actually part of the show. You know, but every now and then she likes to come in and act like she a guest because she stay gone so long.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right.
But anyway, for those of y'all who don't know, of course, you know, Keisha is our queen, you know, emeritus, and you know, always taking care of mad business in our beloved city. And of course, you know that you know she's always representing the NABC. But of course, you know, here lately she's you know the new director for the new violence prevention organization that has been established by our, you know, beloved mayor. And of course, she's going to share with us tonight what's going on with the opening of the new spot and everything that's going down with it, and what's happening in the city.
Because we had Junius on, the historian, a couple of weeks ago, and he was just excited about what's going on over there. So you can just take the baton and keep going, because he was like, oh, and there's one more thing. Oh, one more thing.
Yeah, Junius has been doing a great job with being a historian for it. So the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery was started probably about a year ago. We're coming up on a year. And it was in the wake of the George Floyd climate with all of the protests in terms of the defunding of the police. And so the office is funded ultimately by public safety dollars, where we reallocated 5% of public safety dollars to be able to do violence prevention work. And so the city and most cities have the biggest budgets are public safety budgets. And a lot of community-based organizations are not able to do the work that they want to do because they don't have proper funding. And so the Office of Violence Prevention for the City of Newark was an executive order by Mayor Raj J. Baraka. And with the city having 7 police precincts, we were given one of the police precincts to be able to do our work. And so Junius is helping to put together the museum. So we're doing a museum of conflict resolution on one of the floors of the police precinct, the 4th precinct, we're going to be using as the Office of Violence Prevention. And so the museum is, you know, representative of restorative justice practices, where once people who were getting arrested at this place is now a place of hope and a place where they can get some help. And the office and the 4th precinct is also a historical place of where some of the uprisings came out of the 67 rebellion. And so it's just historical all the way around. And so we are working to get the office stood up. The physical building won't be available until next year, 2022. But we are working out of several locations right now. I have an office in City Hall, but we have under the office the Shani Baraka Center, the West War Victims Outreach Program up on South Orange Avenue. I have an outreach team working out of the health department. And so we are working diligently to get the office stood up where we have hired social workers and victim advocates. And so for every 10 police officers that get hired, I get to hire 1 social worker. And so, this is monumental, game changing. And so we are really looking to be a model city nationally. And so the office is in the process of really trying to find ways to help bridge the gaps between law enforcement and community.
That is dope. You said for every, how many officers?
10.
You get to hire a new social worker.
Right, because we know that law enforcement can't do everything, and we're not looking for them to do everything. And so many of them, so we get calls. So some of it is the, what do we call, quality of life kinds of issues, right? Homelessness, mental health, panhandling, things like that that officers get called for, where they can be responded to other things. We have mental health counselors and social workers and other practitioners that can respond to some of those calls. And so for the first time, we're able to hire social workers to go out with law enforcement and instead of law enforcement. And they will also be embedded into some of the precincts, the youth house and the adult processing, so that we can ultimately break the cycle where we have repeat offenses and people having repeat victimization or being the perpetrators of crime and violence. So we're, interceding by putting in people who can identify trauma and help them by getting resources. So, we're going getting to the root causes of the issues versus just being reactionary.
Well, I definitely like that. I think that's dope. In terms of being able to go out and answer those particular things, man. So that's and you said, when is the office gonna open?
The office is currently open, but we're working out of different areas versus the police precinct. So we are already working. We're already on the grounds. So we're working out of the Shani Baraka Center, the police. No, not the police precinct. The City Hall. I have a Westwood office on South Orange Avenue, and we have people working out of the health department.
Oh yeah, that's dope. Keesha, while we got you on, one of the things I thought about, because I wanted to ask you about this. Have you paid attention to the Olympics at all and what happened with that Sister Simone Biles?
I haven't. I don't know the details, but I know that she opted out due to her mental health, her emotional health, right?
Yeah.
And more importantly, I guess, Ed, are you going to go where a commentator got on TV and said because she's opting out from mental, stress, that she's a fraud? Oh my God, he went and said a litany of things. And out of everybody that has opted out from mental stress, here is a woman who's been sexually abused. She had to go through the adoption process because her mom wasn't able to take care of her. Grandparents ended up raising her. I can remember when she first came out on the scene, people were commenting about her hair not done. I mean, this young lady has been constantly verbally abused and by quote unquote professional people. And it's just horrible. And I don't know, Ed, if some of these people if she can go after them for what's the thing called? Yeah, slander. It's just horrible. I mean, somebody and one of the commentators was on his platform. So if it was ABC News, he's the commentator and he's on, saying this. It was just, and I don't know if he's recalled his statements, but I know he got a lot of backlash. And to the, one of the comedians that I'm a fan of, Michael Che from SNL, he said something from a comedic standpoint, and he had to shut down his Instagram and Twitter because everything is not to be made fun of, So,
right. So no, I haven't followed it, but I certainly have seen some bits and snippets, and I commend her for wanting to take care of her social, emotional, and mental health. But what was the tennis player Osaka, right? She opted out as well, and she didn't get the backlash.
Naomi.
Right. And even in our entertainment, business, like a lot of them.
At first, Naomi did get it, but I think,
oh, okay.
I don't know, it turned around real quick. I don't know what happened, but at first, I think even the tennis, they went, question her backing out of it. So, yeah. And just think, mental health leave has been, I can say in the state of New Jersey, it has probably been over 10 years ago that it has been, you can take mental stress, and how long it's just catching up to the entertainment world. And then they have to second guess being, doing it. So
it shows you that mental health is not valued, right? And that's what it ultimately shows us. That people don't value that people want to take care of their mental health. And it certainly should be. And I commend them for putting it on the forefront. And some of our celebrities have been doing it a little bit more so as well, but it's still low on totem pole in terms of being valued.
Right, but that's the point, though, Keesha. I think that it's almost as though Black women don't have a right to say that right now I'm having some real issues with my emotional health at this point, and so it's more important than me entertaining you all, right? It's more important for me to take care of myself emotionally, to take care of myself spiritually, than it is to go jump on a bar and swing around for you guys like I'm some kind of monkey. When at the end of the day, if my mind is not right, how can I? And she said she was unable to focus right on her routines because of how she was feeling emotionally.
Right.
And I think that that's important, and that's why I think that Keesha, people like you should actually be part of the Olympics and those events, right? Where they have you all just like putting you all in the police departments. Imagine if they had that kind of assistance and help, people who traveled with them who could help them, right, work through those emotional situations. Because that's what Naomi went through, right?
I think that's an excellent idea. Just as they have the coaches, or when they get hurt, right? They have them right there to be able to do some of the rehab work with them. I think that they should have mental health counselors on standby. I think they should have people who can help people cope, because the stress, and they're overwhelmed. Their bodies are being stressed. And so we know that mental, physical, health goes hand in hand. So if I'm not right emotionally and mentally, then surely the body is not going to allow me to, perform at my best. And so there's the book, right? The Body Keeps the Score. So people who've experienced trauma and stress and depression and all of those things, it's a wear and tear on the body physically. And so those things have to go hand in hand, and we have to, really work on them valuing them at the same level. So I think that they should have them on standby, just like how they have the people who do the rehab with them.
And I can remember again going to your first. We were over at the school, and you did your first training on trauma and how it affects us. Your first training on it, and how long ago that was, and from that to this, it's a long time. I remember we had one of our babies in Orange murdered in front of his friends, and the first thing that came to my mind was that I called the coaches. It was like all hands on deck, because if anybody has ever responded to a murder scene, it's very active. People are raw. So you need to be able to respond to that energy. And oftentimes there's nobody there to respond to the babies crying too. I remember a mother her grandmother, her grandbaby got killed, and it was like 10 degrees. And she said, I'm not, you know how long the coroner's, the Essex County Coroner's Office, they go through the process. You might be out there like 3 or 4 hours. And she said, I'm not leaving here until they bring my baby's body out. And it was 10 degrees outside, but there were no resources there. I mean, there was a church right there that the church could have opened, let her sit inside. The social worker could have, you know, we could have began getting information, but those servants, and I'm saying this was probably back in 2008, and 13 years later, your office is one of the first that's just kind of catching up to that type of response.
Absolutely. So yeah. So people don't take it serious until it lands on their doorstep. People don't see it until it's on their doorstep.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, Keesha, I think that, you know, one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, calling a friend of mine, Jeffrey Gardere, in New York, and getting you and him together. And I'm definitely thinking about, you know, you all should perhaps write a letter to the, you know, to you know, the Olympic Association, and begin to say that, you know what I mean? And I think that, you know, we can get some of them sisters involved as well, to say that, you know, what they should have is just like they have, you know, because I can remember when I was an amateur boxer, you know, we had doctors who were around us if anything happened to us, just to make sure that we can continue fighting, you know. And I'm like, okay, well, but now with everything, and you know, here's the other thing, Keesha. You know, one of the things Mayor Baraka said on his show, maybe 2 months ago, he was talking about none of us really know the effect, right, of this pandemic, right? Of all of us staying home and all of the emotional pressures, because a lot of people being at home with some people they didn't really want to be at home with, there was some mental and physical abuse going on, right? And a lot of us aren't really talking about that. And then we aren't really talking about the emotional pressure that was on us just staying in the house like that, right? I mean, you know, and so that's why he was saying that we aren't really going to know what that is. And then think about people who perform at a high level, like these tennis players or these gymnasts, right? Or these athletes. I mean, think about it. They, you know, I mean, I get it that because you're a public person, you know, you've got to have thicker skin than everybody else, right? There are certain things that you can say about people and so forth. But remember, people, I mean, you know, public people are people too. You know, you say things to them or things happen in their life. I mean, yeah, they got to come back out just like we do. You know, you can be at home and go through whatever you, but when you come back out, yeah, you got to have a smile on your face. That's true. But hell, you know, everybody need a break every now and then. Right?
Well, I certainly agree with that. And so during COVID, I was, again, boots on the ground, frontline, first responder, one of the heroes, right? Where I was working the Shawnee Center and, you know, wasn't, you know, allowed to work from home because, you know, people in crisis, no matter what, COVID or not. So, you know, yes, we are human, and we are, and we have our own things that are going on, but people don't see that. That people are, yes, we are human and we have our own things going on. But again, we're still expected to respond. And so a lot of us, we are the work, right? So a lot of us have our own mental, social, emotional, financial, spiritual warfares going on, but we still have to, you know, perform and be there for other people and be on that front line. So you're right. We don't know the effects of COVID. And so we certainly need to, you know, be mindful though and grant some grace to folks because it's an overwhelming climate and we can't be business as usual because we're in a pandemic still.
Yeah. And what's your big? And you've done a great job of letting us know by example. Self-care is mandatory, and I know that you've been doing this by example. I'm on a self-care weekend, and I know you're being very purposeful about doing that. You know, it's like I'm taking self-care. So I think that like Ed is saying, people, we've seen some very public one, I know there's a talk show, Kelly Clarkson, she's one that they went through a divorce. She said, because she had to stay home, and some things, and there's the flip side. Some people got closer, but it's something,
It's tough. And people ask me all the time, like, how do you do it? So I do the self-care, and I take little turns to kind of go away here and there, take some quiet time. In the morning, I try to get my quiet time because it's important to me, like in the morning from like 7 to 8, because I know after 8 o'clock, I'm off to the races. The day is started. People don't care what you got going on. They want what they want from you. They need what they need. The mayor needs his stuff done. The people need responses to crisis. And so your energy gets expended, and so you have to find ways to replenish. And so I do kind of steal away here and there when I can. I'm currently at the drive-in movie. That's what I'm doing right now. So I'm trying to it doesn't start though, but trying to just kind of steal away when I can, because the small moments are important. Every little moment you can get to yourself is important. And so that's how I take care of me. But it's tough because it's not enough. It's never enough. And so that part is certainly important. Taking care of yourself, understanding your triggers, understanding when things are too much for you and when you should just opt out and tap out. Because you're no good for nobody if you can't show up, at 100%. A lot of times we don't have 100%, but we still got to show up. So it's tough. I'm as days happen, as this office is being stood up, as crime and violence continues to happen, and people continue to pull on you and need you. I would certainly say that the energy that you need to sustain this is tough. The supports that you need, the people that work with you and for you, and the way that you choose them is important, because when you burn out and run out of energy, you need them to still have some energy for you. And so when you outlasting them, then I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Keesha, I'm beginning to hear this term that, hi, I'm a peace officer. I'm a peace officer. Are you familiar with that term? No?
No, I'm not familiar with it. Where are you hearing it from?
I'm hearing it from so persons that would normally show up as security guards they're like using the term peace officers now. And I've actually heard it a lot in Newark. So I was wondering, is that, a transition we're coming in so that we let people, see things in a different light and not maybe so hostile or whatever.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard it, but doesn't mean that it's not happening. There's trends that are happening. The shift in culture of policing, law enforcement, security.
Oh, there we go, Queen. We were losing you. Okay, go ahead.
The culture is shifting in terms of law enforcement, officers, security, and things like that. So the language is changing. I'm not familiar with it, but I hope that is the case, because we need to be practicing peace, and we need to be doing more peace campaigns.
And I know we were talking about getting Keesha on the second week with the vote panel, so she could talk about, like, one of the things, that whole defund the police, and I almost want to say generational. People were like, that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And reflecting on it now, do you see there's more acceptance of that term? And you're like, no.
I don't think it's more acceptance of it, but what I think that would be helpful, and I just want to shift in terms of what we're doing in the city of Newark currently, is I did a piece this week with News 12, and we talked about how we not just defund the police, right, because it has a negative connotation, but how we refund the people, how we reinvest in the community. And so some of the work that I'm doing is I'm doing a Safe Summer Academy with people who've been victims of violence and crime, and even some of them who have been the perpetrators of violence and crime. And so I have 120 individuals that I hired for the summer, and I'm paying them to be able to learn. So it's an earn and learn kind of a program. I have 4 different sites, ages 14 to 17, 18 to 24, and then a 25 and over crew. And so they are getting workshops, life skills, entrepreneurship. They're learning how to start their own businesses, social emotional learning. They're all connected to social workers and therapists. And so the work has been amazing and it's been transformative in the city. And so as we look at what refunding the people look like, or defunding of the police look like, it looked like the resources being trickled down right into the hands of the people that we're really trying to help, versus it always looking like the money is going to consultants and law enforcement tactics and all of those things. This is right here on the grounds where the people are benefiting directly, and they're getting skills. They're able to earn. They're able to not be on the streets from 9 to 5. They're working 40 hours a week. And so that's a victory for us. If we can keep them off the streets for 40 hours during the week, then it's less time that they are involved in any crime and violence, or probably the victimization of crime and violence. So that's what that looks like for us right now.
Keesha, I think that, this is really a mental issue for us as Black people. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of what's going on in our communities and why the work you do is so important, because other people who don't really have a Black experience don't understand all of the shit we have to deal with in a day, and that's why I think it's really mental. You know what I mean? And we've got to really begin, I think, to really do some mental healing, and that really, I think if we can do that, that's why I think that one of the big conversations me and the mayor, and what we always have with the mayor, is about there's no post-traumatic slave syndrome for Black people. There's just not that, and that's what Dr. DeGuru talks about in her book. There's no post for us. So there's a real mental issue that we need to deal with in our community, because I think that we're never going to get the kind of healing we need body wise if we don't do something with our mind first, right? And if we don't do that, so I think that those are some real issues, and I think that you being one of the only real warriors in our community on that, and I applaud you for trying to train other people to be able to do this work. But I had to tell you, Keesha, it's a hell of a job. I wonder sometimes how you able to keep your mind together, sis.
Absolutely. And it's tough. And I can't even put it into words. But as you said, right, the post-traumatic stress syndrome and the post-traumatic slave syndrome, is a real place, because there's no post about it, right? Black people don't have posts. It's present for us all the time. And so the triggers that we have is everlasting, because if you lost somebody, mainly a lot of people who've experienced loss, that's their trigger, that's their trauma trigger. The loss of a parent, the loss of security, the loss of housing, the loss of a job, the loss of your freedom, right? Incarceration. The loss is the underlying thing that many of us, ultimately know how to, that we can connect on. And many of us don't recover from that, right? There's no recovery from the losses, because it gets compounded. So it becomes loss on top of loss on top of loss. And we're just expected to deal with it. We're expected to just cope with it. And many of us don't cope well. And so you have people who have substance abuse issues, people who, turn to, negative things, where they're robbing, stealing, killing each other, right? Because that's the only way that they know how to cope. And the crime and violence is ultimately about money, power, respect, right? And so we have this false sense of power, a false sense of respect, a false sense of ownership. And so ultimately we have to go back and relearn knowledge itself, right? We always know that that's the case, but what's the mission? Like, what are we supposed to be doing in our lives? What's your purpose? And many of us never learn our true purposes in life. Yep. And so it becomes business as usual. We normalize violence and stress and depression and poverty. We normalize mental health issues, and we don't address it. We say, oh, that person just crazy. And in reality, they have some real challenges, and we're not really willing to deal with them. Many of the times it's sexually related, and we don't want to deal with sexual violence because it's taboo. And so we have to really start to deal with these things. And in our Black and brown communities, we don't go to counseling. We don't go to therapy. We don't believe that it works.
Right.
We don't have any relatability. We think that it's stupid. We don't want to talk to anybody. And so we know that other people go to therapy. It's a part of their culture. It's a thing for them. And they don't worry about how they're going to pay for it. They don't worry, their jobs are going to pay for it. And it's a part of the culture. It's not stigma attached to mental health. If they stressed, overwhelmed, depressed, they're going to go talk to somebody.
Right.
We have to now start to make that normal in our culture, where we can do it, especially post-COVID, especially after many of us have been locked in our houses. We can talk to somebody over the phone. They have telehealth now. You don't have to go into an office. You don't have to lay on nobody's couch. You can just pick up your phone. You can be on a video. You can, just like we're talking right now, right? And so it's more accessible. We just have to want it. And I think that we just have to know that it exists. And a lot of times we just don't know. But we have to normalize taking care of our emotional health and our mental health. It has to become normal.
Yep, and all those things you just ID'd, Keesha, is right on target, and you absolutely right, because it was that way when I was coming up. I know we got to go to DJ Rhino, but I just want to say, Keesha, you absolutely right, because when I was coming up, we all said that, man, you don't want to talk to nobody, man. You all right? Yo, what are you, crazy? Yo, you nuts? And the truth is that, you know, I can say for my own self, I really did need to talk to somebody. You know what I mean? And you're right. We gotta help make this where it's not taboo. You know what I mean?
And you know what? When you just said that, Keesha, it just the commentator who said that about Simone, it's amazing, because you're right. Because in their community, it's by their teenage years, many of them have been to see a counselor, but to flip it, and now we're crazy in our community for that's deep, that we're not deserving of it, and now we do. Keesha, but you're there at the drive-in by the young couple who have the drive-in down in Newark. So what's showing tonight? You got to give them a shout out.
We're at the Moonlight at the drive-through. It's on Orange Street. They have Judas and the Black Messiah, and what else? I'm seeing Judas and the Black Messiah.
Okay.
I'm not sure. They have 2 screens, so this is new. I went last year when they first started out, and they were at another location with 1 screen. So they are now stepping their game up with 2 screens.
2 screens, okay.
2 screens in a bigger space. And so shout out to our Black businesses, our local businesses, and people who are really making it happen for our community. And we have to make sure that we support them.
That's right. All right.
We want to thank you. We appreciate you for giving us some of your time tonight. We know how busy you are. And
I wanted to see if DJ Rhino want to take us out and see if Keesha's listening to anything that we need to know about on her radio. Rhino, you there?
What's good? What's good?
You want to ask Keesha that question, see what she's listening to this week?
Oh, Keesha, what's good? What you been listening to? Who's been inspiring you recently in hip hop?
Hey, Rhino. I don't even think that I have had time to listen to anybody this week.
That I can understand. That I could truly understand.
Or any week. So I'm still on my Bruno Mars.
Okay.
Leave the door open. That's where I am right now.
Anderson .Paak. Anderson .Paak is hip hop. Anderson .Paak is hip hop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm riding with you on that. I'm riding with you on that because that's my joint too. I love that.
Yeah, that's all I got for you right now.
All right.
Yeah, y'all listen to that song. There's gonna be a lot of babies come up soon. That song is woo.
But the classic sound about that song, the song has such a classic sound.
Romantic, yeah.
It's very classic, and that's soothing enough for a warrior spirit like a sister Keesha, man. I know Keisha's out there in the streets, and she's seen all kinds of wild things, and I know it takes toll on her spirit and her mind, and she needs something to soothe her. Something
that's right.
And bring it down a little bit. You know what I mean? So I can understand that. So much respect to you, sister. You know, I
So-
always have mad love and respect for you.
And as you close out, Ed Riley said that house music. Oh, it's at the library. It was kicking off. Did you had a chance to ride by there, Keesha? Oh,
I
you
have
talking about
not, but I
Oh.
saw over by the what do they call it? That new place over there by the Prudential Center had a lot of people out there.
That's what you talking about, yeah.
So the city is kicking off everywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm going to bid y'all all good night. My movie
Night,
is
night.
coming on. All
Night.
politics is local. All politics is local. All politics is local. Good night.
Thanks,
Peace,
sis.
peace,
Thank you.
All right.
peace.
All right.
Yeah.
So
And-
Rhino, listen, man,
yeah.
we're gonna throw it to you for a few minutes. You got anything that's up? Anything you want to talk about?
One thing first off, before I say anything, I want to say rest in peace, Malik B. We lost him a year yesterday. A year ago, Malik B. from the legendary Roots crew. He was one of the MCs right next to Black Thought. He was one of the other MCs. He was his partner. I was basically Black Thought's partner in the group. But we lost him a year ago yesterday. So peace and rest in peace to Malik B. Also, happy anniversary to Tribe Called Quest. Their third was it the third? 1, 2, 3. Really, no, their fourth. No, their fourth album, The Beats, Rhymes, and Life, because their first album was Paths. The second album was Low End Theory. The third album was Midnight Marauders. So the fourth album was Beats, Rhymes, and Life, which came out in 1996. Today, actually. So that's 25 years ago. So happy anniversary to Tribe Called Quest and the album Beats, Rhymes, and Life, which had hits. The major hit off of that joint was mainly Stressed Out, which featured Faith Evans on the hook. And it was a real stressed out time. I remember when that album came out, because that was during that was 96. So that was during the whole East Coast, West Coast beef that was going on, and the whole tension between Death Row and Bad Boy and Tupac and Biggie. I don't know if Pac had passed at that time. I know he passed in 96, but I'm not sure if he passed yet when that album came out. But the album came out was like during the spring, summertime. During this time. So it was the summertime. So yeah, we hadn't lost Pac yet. But we lost Pac like a couple of months after the release of this album. So things were real deep and real tense in the air. And I remember that during this time. And this was also a period where Tribe Called Quest themselves were going through some tensions within the group. And they were getting ready to split up, because the album after this, which was the Love Movement, ended up being their last effort together as a group. So yeah, it was a tense time when this album dropped, man. But they had some great joints on there. There was a joint called Get a Hold, which was real dope. I mean, they had you got to check it out. It's the name of the album is Beats, Rhymes, and Life. They also have a documentary after the same title, Beats, Rhymes, and Life, and definitely check out the documentary for Tribe Called Quest. Rest in peace, Phife Dawg. It's a real touching documentary. Again, the album is also touching. These brothers really got deep into your spirit when it came down to music. Me and my brothers personally, my group, my friends, my family, Hidden Descent and 5X, we all were really big fans of Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul and the whole Native Tongues family, because they were really deep into music. They were deep into just touching your heart and your spirit and your soul. They were about positive, conscious vibrations. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, rest in peace again to Phife Dawg, and big ups to Tribe Called Quest. Happy anniversary to the album Beats, Rhymes, and Life.
Anything else?
Okay. Well, Rhino, next week I know we got to work on a Mike C, but I seen on Netflix, Rhino, it was like a 7-part series. And it was from the police perspective about the Biggie and Tupac murders. And it was interesting. I'll send it to you. It was like a docudrama, like who killed them, and but it was really, really good.
Also, one last thing too, with Nas, Nas actually got a Grammy for his King's Disease album. which was surprising because people didn't expect. Nas never gets an album. I mean, never gets a Grammy for any of his albums, and then the 1 year that he gets one was for King's Disease from last year, the album that he put out.
And this is his first Grammy?
That was his first Grammy.
Wow.
Now he's been putting out a promo for his new album, which is King's Disease 2. So that's been making a lot of noise. It's just so far it's just been like a picture of him. It looks like a young Nas almost. Doesn't even look like him now. It looks like a young Nas. But it's just a picture of him, and it says King's Disease 2. So everybody look out for King's Disease 2. It says it's dated for August 6th, I believe. So look out for that.
And didn't Kanye release something?
Kanye just put out Donda. That's the name of his album. And I can't even get into. We don't even have enough time to get into everything Ye's been doing behind this. He puts a whole huge production behind his whole thing. But he does have a new album called Donda. Everybody's been talking about the song that Jay-Z is on. I can't remember the title of it, but Jay-Z is on it. It's the last song on the album, actually. But look out for that. It kind of gives you hints to a possible Watch the Throne 2 album between those two. So
hey Rhino, before we sign off, have you heard about Questlove beefing with some young rapper?
I just read something like honestly, no lie, like about a couple of hours ago before I got on here. Okay. I just saw something, so I didn't get too deep. I didn't read too deep into it yet, but I saw something. But I don't know. I got to read into it. But I don't even think Quest is such a big figure in hip hop and in music in general. Like Quest has brought so much to the table for music in general that did any of y'all see the documentary on Hulu, which is called what's it called? Summer of Soul. Have y'all seen that yet?
No, I don't think
I'm going to do it this weekend, Rhino. I love Questlove.
That's something. It's and it's really so much. Bigger, it's so much bigger than his name, because really when you see this, you don't even think about Questlove.
Yeah,
but he was behind.
Is it from his father's collection or something? I think.
I'm not sure, but he was definitely behind trying to put this together so that the people can see it. It's something that people haven't seen for 50 years now. Honestly, I've seen clips. I've seen a couple of clips of Sly Stone's performance from this. It was probably somebody else's video recording who was there that day or something like that, because it had the numbers running at the bottom of it.
Yeah, I think
it's a documentary of a Harlem festival that took place in Mars Park, uptown Harlem, back in 1969.
I thought 67. Oh, okay.
What I heard,
1969. It's the same time around when Woodstock was going on.
Yes.
But everybody that said, "Hey, we don't care about Woodstock." Plus, this was also when the astronauts went to the moon. It was people that was like, "Yeah, we don't care about the moon either. We here for the Harlem Festival." And
because
Stevie Wonder, Sly and the Family Stone, Gladys Knight and the Pips. Mahalia Jackson, staple singers. It was so many.
The guy who sings "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised."
Gil Scott-Heron.
And there he was like, something's going. Whitey going to the moon.
Yeah, he was going. Whitey on the moon. Whitey on the moon. Yeah. And that was the energy at that concert. So you really got to see it. It's called Summer of Soul. And Questlove was definitely behind producing that.
Right.
Yeah. He definitely was.
So really, as far as anything with some young rapper got to say about somebody's sexual preference or what he thinks, that don't mean nothing. Cause
you talking about the baby?
I don't know who it was. Yeah, I think it was the baby, right?
It was.
It was the baby that said. Yeah. So I ain't worried about that.
Yeah, and then he had the nerve to say, "Who is Questlove?" I'm like, whoa.
Well, but you have to think. I mean, of course, for us that sounds insane. But you got to think how young he is. There's a lot of kids out here, and I realize, like where I work at, I realize there's a lot of kids.
But Rhino, here's the kicker.
Let me finish. There's a lot of kids out here. You got to think of when they were born. Like my son is 20. He'll be 21 next month in August. Right? He was born in 2000. There's kids out here that was born like younger than that, later than that.
Right.
They're not going to know what we know. They don't know these names. They don't know who these people are. You know, we it's up to us to spread these names, to let them know, give them the education. But we can't expect them to just right off the bat know what we know, because they come from a whole different time. When you born in 2000 something and we was born in 70 something, 60 something, you know, they're not going to know.
Well, you know what the kicker was about the baby? He was on the Tonight Show and Questlove played the music for him.
Yeah, hey,
that's the kicker.
Because Questlove got the wisdom. That's what I'm saying. He knows.
Right. And see, and that's the thing, right? Questlove was able to be big enough, right, to say, "Look, man, it ain't even about what you think it's about," you know, and then just move on and just say, "Yo, man, I'm old enough to be your father, man."
Exactly.
All right. Well, listen, man, Rhino, we appreciate you, Donna. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of the guests that were on tonight. Coming on and all the wisdom that came out, and
always
and
a good show.
John and so forth. So we had a lot of technical difficulties, but we were able to work through it and get the show done. Yeah. Hey, Rhino, by the way, man, I want you to know I was talking to Brother Mchume over the was it yesterday? I think we spoke to Brother Mchume, man, and he asked about you, brother. So I just wanted to give you the greetings from him, man.
That's what's up. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
we got to get him back on the show again, man.
Yeah, what I would like to say is we're 10 minutes over, but this is the executive producer allowing us to extend the time. So, but I do want to thank everybody for their patience and Jonathan to the opportunity to come back and to allow me to get the on-the-job training on how to work the back. And Mike, big ups to you, Mike, because what you do is not easy back here. So, and Ed over here sending me all these notes, driving me crazy. and then he gonna call me mental. So I love you too, Ed. But thank you for the experience. But it's a lot of work in the background to make this thing just happen seamlessly. So, Mike, love you.
Producer Donna.
This is a lot.
I was actually trying to say no. It was mental, right? I was trying to tell Keesha, I was saying to Keesha, it was mental, right? Or everything that's going on that we're dealing with right now is mental. Right? I mean, like a lot of when we get, I don't know if you experience this, Rhino. Like a lot of times you're not physically tired, you're mentally tired.
Yeah,
right?
most definitely. And
if
you got to think through this whole COVID thing for the last 2 years, man. It's definitely taking a toll on your mental.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was saying, Donna. I was saying, Donna, this is mental. This what's going on with us, right? If because sometimes if I could just go take me a nap, I feel better, right? And a lot of times, but imagine though, Rhino, a lot of people just can't really just think.
Right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why, especially through this COVID, man, there's a lot more drunks and drug addicks and
remember Mayor Baraka actually said that. Mayor Baraka said that.
Right. He said we don't really know the actual mental effects of this thing yet. We really don't know. And the fact that they got a new variant now. Come on, man. This thing is, and they telling you to put back on a mask again. People are mentally challenged. That Bashir hit me up tonight and said that. He said it was so many people at that thing. He said, brother, he said, man, he said, I'm going back to the car and get my mask, bro.
That's right.
Many people.
And speaking of that, Ed, announcement, when is the mayor's men's meeting this weekend? Breakfast?
No. You know what? I think it is. I posted it. Hey, Rhino, you bringing your son down again?
Where?
It's good. Let me. I put it in on.
To the men's meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know when.
It's posted on the on
our page. On our page.
Yeah, it's on our page, but it's part of the press release that we put out today.
And is it really all men?
Well, some sisters show up. You know how y'all are. Y'all ain't about to let us have a meeting.
But y'all might as well sign off and we can talk all this behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And Rhino, listen. All right, but Rhino, listen. I got my homework. I'll be ready for you next week. Okay. You see that, Rhino?
Yeah. Double that down.
All right.
All right, y'all. We thank y'all for listening to All Politics and Local America's number one hip hop radio talk show.
Thank you.
Peace. So Donna left.
I don't think she know how to end it. I don't think she know how to end the line.
She ended the whole thing.
All right, Rhino, I guess we better click off.
All right, brother. So I'm gonna catch up with you, man. But yeah, just keep me posted on
I'm
anything.
here. No, stay on.
Well, you gotta end the live, Donna.
Stop. I'm trying to see how to do it. He didn't say. Oh, good night, everybody.
Oh, we still on?